How you doing? How you feeling? Welcome to this week's episode. I don't know why I hesitated on the word week. Episode of Search and Report. I'm your host, True Fernie. Welcome to a new week, a new week full of announcements, full of just a bunch of pre-orders, man. I feel like people spent too much money on video games this past week, man. We got a lot to talk about this episode. I'm really excited. Like, for once since E3, it feels like there's some good juicy news now regarding gaming. I mean, there always is, you know, there's always something happening with gaming, the biggest industry, entertainment industry in the world. Of course, there's always something going to be popping off here and there. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. I'm going to start with this section that I like to call What Have I Been Playing? And of course, this is something that I always ask as well whenever I have guests on. And I have been playing actually a lot of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. As we all know, why is there a hair in my mouth? As we all know, Zelda Skyward Sword HD released last Friday, July 16th. And to be honest, man, like, I'm gonna give you my quick review and impressions of the game. My history with Skyward Sword is a little rocky because, I mean, going into the game, it was one of the first games that I ever bought with my own, like, real big boy money. I'm not saying that I had my first job when I was like, what, 19 barely. No, I've been working for a minute now. But when the game released, before that, I you know, of course, I was barely getting out of high school, and like, I didn't have enough money. I was working minimum wage jobs and stuff. But I remember when this game came out, I was starting to like get a little bit more money. You know, I was still kind of making on the low end, but I remember being very happy about this game and like buying it and like saying like, damn, I've been playing Zelda games since 1998, like, and now it feels like this is the transition point of like being a child to an adult. And so this, in essence, was basically the first Zelda game that I ever played with like fresh new eyes as an adult. And to be honest, like, I was also in this weird like area in life where, you know, the Wii was still out, and like the Wii kind of just felt very outdated, man, because I remember playing the Wii when it first released. If I'm not mistaken, it released like in 2007. Let me look that up real quick before I keep talking out of my ass. But if I recall correctly, the game released, November 2006. So holiday 2006, basically going into 2007. And I remember like, damn, like, people still playing the Wii. Like, I'd imagine people have, I don't know, upgraded their stuff, because if y'all remember, the Wii was a 480p console. Nowadays 480p is like, I mean, even calling it standard definition feels a little weird in my opinion. But again, by that time we already had PS3s. We had Xbox 360, Xbox One. No, I don't think we had Xbox One by then. But like, next gen graphics were already a part of the talk. And I'm not saying, like, of course, Nintendo has never put enough emphasis on, you know, hardware, because they purposely released the hardware, you know, underpowered for future proofing, so to speak. But I remember this game coming out, I was like, damn, like, am I still playing 480p games in 2011? When at that same time I was playing like games like Red Dead Redemption, I was playing GTA on my PS3, and I was like, what's like, where is the value in this? So my eyes, I don't want to say I was a little bit cynical going into Skyward Sword my first time, but I wasn't too happy about it. And like I said, Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask are some of my favorite Zelda games. Like, off the rip, I'm already pretty biased when it comes to like happy-go-lucky type of games, even though I really did like Wind Waker. But the pastel colors, I don't know, just a lot of the story in the vibe of Skyward Sword just didn't mesh with me a lot. And I found it a little bit, I don't know, just not as interesting going into it. The motion controls, I never actually had a lot of problems with. I usually only had problems with it with diagonal cuts using the Wiimote, from what I recall and I remember. But besides that, I don't recall me complaining a lot about the motion controls, and I feel that's people's biggest issues with Skyward Sword and the Wii. It's the motion controls. I mean, by that time they were a little overplayed. They were kind of like overstaying their welcome because, of course, the Wii released in 2006, and people were like, "Oh, again, another game just solely based on motion controls." So I kind of understand why people hated it on that game a lot. But now, playing it on the Switch in HD, I gotta say I am thoroughly enjoying the game. And again, like, there were a lot of things I didn't understand from Skyward Sword when it came out for the Wii, and one of them was the stamina bar. If you remember, this was the first Zelda game where a stamina bar was pretty prominent. It was basically part of the main game, like you only having a certain amount of stamina to run, to sprint, to climb stuff. Again, this was also one of the first games where you could actually basically climb any wall. I mean, to an extent, of course. It's not like Breath of the Wild, but playing it this time around, especially after Breath of the Wild, and seeing how certain elements that were implemented in Breath of the Wild were kind of being experimented on in Skyward Sword, such as climbing, stamina bars, etc., especially the sailcloth as well. I'm starting to like appreciate more these decisions that at first I thought were annoying, that I first thought were like, why are you limiting me to a stamina bar? Like, I remember being so upset at that. I was like, why can't you just let me sprint freely? Like, Link is the hero of time. He's supposed to have like not superpowers, but he's like supernatural. And like, why is this man having a stamina bar? Why does he have to stop and like rest for like 5 seconds every time he sprints for like less than 5 seconds, you know? But after like playing Breath of the Wild, I'm like, oh, so that's what they were doing. That's what they were trying to do. Skyward Sword was kind of like an experiment to like work upon and like build upon for Breath of the Wild. So it made me appreciate a little bit more the decisions they made with Skyward Sword back in the Wii. And this time around as well, I can kind of appreciate motion controls a little bit more. But I feel I'm being forced to appreciate them. And let me explain why, as to why I think that. I think the issue is that this game was obviously built from the ground up with motion controls in mind. It's obviously a Wii game. It's a first-party Wii title, and everything was based on the motion controls. Now that we got Skyward Sword HD, you have the ability to play either with motion controls or button controls. And like button controls work. I enjoy them. It makes stuff a lot easier to play. But like, for example, I was saying the horizontal slashes, it's a little bit easier to make those types of slashes, but at the same time, like, it's a little bit too easy, you know? And I know, man. I know I'm sounding like such a contrarian right now, but the button controls are making me appreciate the challenges and the difficulty that motion controls added. But that's because I'm being forced to give it its blessings, to give it its you know, its what do you call it, its flowers, so to speak, because that's what the game was designed behind. The game was designed behind motion controls. That's why, you know, it's a little bit more difficult for you to kill certain enemies. Nowadays, you can slash and dash through enemies like it's nothing, because with just the flick of the right joystick, you can make the perfect move that you were aiming for. And like, I understand that that's kind of like a difficulty barrier that the game puts on you right off the bat with motion controls. But I kind of like it made me appreciate it a little bit more, because I'm at this point, Skyward Sword already was pretty easy. It's a pretty easy game to beat. Now it's way easier in my opinion. It's just completely a walk in the park. But again, now that I'm seeing it with a fresher set of eyes, more adult eyes, a post Breath of the Wild eyes, I'm like, this is what I miss also from Zelda games. Like, I miss the traditional sense of Zelda games. I miss dungeons. I love dungeons. I like linearity. I like lore. Like, I like stuff that is pretty on your face. And I know that's that kind of defeats a lot of the fun behind discovering things. For example, in Breath of the Wild, for example, discovering like the Zonai and like discovering their ruins and seeing, you know, how they lived, looking at environmental cues here and there. In Skyward Sword, none of that is left up for the imagination. Skyward Sword is a lot more on the nose. It tells you like what's happening. It tells you like, here's the story of the goddess. Here's the story of like the imprisoned. This is what happens, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. The older I get, the more things I want to be fed. You know, I want them to be played in a neatly I want them to be put in a neatly wrapped package and be like, here you go, this is the story, this is what happens. Like of course theorizing is half of the fun with Zelda games, but at the same time, like I don't know, I missed a lot of the traditional stuff in Skyward Sword. But let me go a little bit further on the controls. I have not played motion controls. I have not played this game with motion controls. I think I'm on 8 hours through the game playing, and I've been playing strictly on button controls. My main concern with button controls is that I think you know, for you to slice and dice and use your sword, you got to use the right stick. So, you know, if you want to do a diagonal cut, you just, you know, you flick the right joystick in a diagonal way wherever you want the sword to go. So it's a little bit more straightforward, and it's a little bit more intuitive to pick, you know, to kind of pick up and get used to. But my biggest issue, my biggest complaint with this new button control scheme is the camera. Now in this HD version, you have the ability to control the camera. You got free movement camera. You can just control it as if it was a normal 3D game, you know, like in Breath of the Wild. But there's a caveat. You can only control the camera if you're holding down the L button, because in this game, the right joystick, which is usually used for the camera controls, is also the joystick that is used for the sword, you know, for slashing the sword, for swinging the sword. But I think this was a huge design flaw. I think the buttons should have been flipped. Like the uses should have been flipped. I feel this game would have been way better if the button controls for the sword, you know, for the swinging the sword, were swapped with the way that you access the camera controls. It would have been a lot more intuitive, in my opinion, if you had to press down the L button in order for you to use the right joystick to swing the sword, rather than, you know, the other way around with the camera. I don't know. It makes it a lot more easier, because half of the time, like even more half the time, like 80% of the time, you're using the camera more than you're using your sword. Its combat isn't that much. I mean, it is a big part of the game, but like you're going to be moving around these environments, these dungeons. You're going to need full control of the camera more than you're going to need, you know, to swing your sword. So that's probably my only complaint with button controls. Everything else works amazing. Finally, it feels a lot more intuitive. It feels a lot more easy to pick up. It's a lot more fun, in my opinion, to play with button controls. I've never been big on motion controls. I can understand their appeal. Like I said, like I played Mario Golf with motion controls, and it's super fun. Like just, you know, trying to like guess and like kind of estimate your force, because the Joy-Cons are pretty good with that technology. They'll pick up on like little things here and there. They'll know how hard you swung that Joy-Con and stuff. But with Skyward Sword and like these types of games, I just don't have no interest in motion controls at all. Anything that's not sports related, I have no interest in motion controls. As far as the graphics, I will say the game looks beautiful. I was never a big fan of the art style, this pastel looking art style, this kind of like bloom effect that a lot of the things have. If I'm not mistaken, Digital Foundry did a great video on tech specs for this game and comparing it to the Wii. And I believe that a lot of the bloom effects, for example, in the backgrounds and stuff, are because, you know, the game was made for the Wii, and the Wii wasn't it wasn't a very powerful piece of hardware. So the developers implemented this bloom that makes everything look a little kind of like overexposed a little bit. Everything looks so much like bright, and it just kind of it takes out a lot of the detail from certain environments, especially for everything that's away from the player. In this game, it's a little bit more dissipated, it's a little bit more diluted, but you can still kind of see it, and it makes me I've always felt Skyward Sword was a very blurry game, and like I understand why it did it in the Wii, but I don't understand why they're kind of doing it here in the Switch just a little bit. But even so, like, the game is beautiful. It's I mean, it's a very peculiar art style. It's not my favorite. As I already said, I like very dark Zelda games. I like Majora's Mask. I love Twilight Princess. So, I mean, I'm already biased in that opinion. So take my opinion on the art style with a grain of salt. But I will say the game is beautiful, and there were a little things that were remade for this game. Certain textures, I believe, were remade in HD graphics. The game runs smooth as hell. It's a stable 60 FPS. It's very neat. It's very nice to look at, and it's just beautiful. It's a very beautiful game, and I can appreciate for what it is, and the art style is just a very beautiful game. The music, I mean, I bought the game back in 2011, and to be honest, my favorite thing about Skyward Sword is the music. Without a doubt, this is one of the best Zelda, if not the best Zelda soundtrack ever. It is beautiful. All the music is orchestrated. The music is very charismatic and kind of, it's very characteristic depending on where you're at. You know, Zelda has been very it's been very, very good at that, at creating music for certain areas and giving it its own character and its own feeling, and, you know, making you feel like you've actually entered a different area. It's not, the music never meshes with each other. Like, it's very characteristic, and it differentiates itself from place to place, and Skyward Sword does a great job at that as well. And especially everything is orchestrated. It's like all the arrangements are beautiful. Like, seriously, big props to the composers of this game, because it's just amazing. And like I said, I bought the game back in 2011, and if you remember, back in 2011, the Wii game came with a CD with the soundtrack and the orchestrated, because the game came out on the 25th anniversary of the Zelda series, which, oh, surprise, it's 10 years later and it's the 35th anniversary, and we have gotten shit except the Game & Watch, and I mean, that still hasn't come, but, you know, at least we got Skyward Sword HD, you know what I'm saying? But besides that, I'm really enjoying the game. The story-wise, I mean, this is the first, you know, lore, you know, if we were talking about lore, this is the first game in the Zelda timeline. This is what kind of sets the precedent for all Zelda games. It talks about more of like where, you know, what the Hylian goddess. I'm not even gonna go into it, because honestly, it's a little boring if you're not a big Zelda fan. But this is where everything starts. Like, from here, it starts. You know, it basically sets the foundation for the Zelda timeline. Which, by the way, Nintendo doesn't even know what the hell they're doing with the Zelda timeline. Don't let anyone tell you that Nintendo knows what the hell they're doing with the Zelda timeline, because they don't even know it, man. They're winging it. Honestly, they're super winging it. But I will say, man, the quality of life upgrades, for example, Fi not being on your face the whole time and like not badgering you with tips and tricks here and there, is very refreshing. It is very refreshing. The ability to fast forward to text boxes is very refreshing as well. It makes the game play a lot easier, and it's very fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm surprised, because like I said, Skyward Sword is one of my least favorite Zelda games. It's in the bottom of my list, but it's slowly creeping up there. Like, it's at least gone up like 2 or 3 ranks, because I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. It's a very charismatic game, and the story is really good. And to be honest, the villains are a little bit dark. Like, don't let the art style fool you. Everything's a little bit dark, in my opinion. I won't spoil anything, but if you haven't gotten it, go ahead and get it. If you're a Zelda fan, I recommend it. It's a great game. But again, It is $60, and it's just an HD port with a little bit of a quality life improvements here and there. So I would say try and get it on a discount, and that's all I'm gonna say. Get it at a discount. You're probably only gonna find it for like $50. I think Walmart has it for $50. But without further ado, besides that, I haven't been playing anything else besides Pokemon Sword and Shield, and like I'm getting ready for Pokemon Unite, which releases tonight. I mean, tomorrow, 1 a.m., but tonight. It's 11 p.m. right now. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's get straight into our first news item of the week. The Steam Deck, which is the biggest news from this past week. Valve announced the Steam Deck back on July 15th, which was Thursday, and which ironically was this was pretty funny. I mean, obviously they did it on purpose, but it's still pretty funny to think of. It was ironically the first day, not the first day, it was the day that pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch OLED opened up, and they literally announced it with like minutes to go before the pre-orders for the Switch OLED dropped. Obviously it was a business tactic, it was a business strategy. But I just found it funny that they went ahead and did this. Hold on, let me fix something with my screen, because I don't want you to see what I'm doing down here. You know what I'm saying? But here we got Steam's Twitter account saying, introducing the Steam Deck, which is a powerful portable PC gaming starting at $399. It was designed by Valve, it's powered by Steam, and it will be shipping on December 2021. The Steam Deck is obviously a portable PC. It's, it is going to be a Steam machine, so to speak. Obviously not to be confused with the actual Steam machines, which failed miserably. But this little thing, it caught me by surprise. I'm sure it caught a lot of people by surprise. Like, I don't think anybody expected this to come from Valve. I mean, people were speculating for the longest time. This is something that's already been on the market. Like, mobile PC gaming is not something new. There's a couple of devices that are already on the market. I can't recall one. One has like I can't even say the name, but it's almost like double the price of what this Steam Deck is currently at, which is $400. It's going to be able to play Steam games. It comes with its dedicated Steam OS, and but I think people were mostly surprised because of the performance of this thing. It's going to be able to play, Steam games, which they showcased that they were going to be playing. There was Jedi: The Fallen Order, or The Fallen Jedi. I don't remember the latest Star Wars game that is single player. And they showed also some footage of Control, which are pretty recent games. And people were amazed with this. It's like being able to play PC games on the go on a portable device is just something that I feel a lot of people have been wanting to get into. This thing will have the ability to be connected to a monitor, so it's essentially it's a small PC. It is essentially that. It's a small PC. I think Steam, Valve, or AIGHT, I don't remember. One of the big the people reporting on this did confirm that people will be able to install Windows on this device, which started to bring up the discussion of whether this will be an emulator machine. And honestly, I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be more of an emulator machine rather than a Steam machine, in my opinion. I feel people are gonna start emulating games, install Windows on it, and just play Steam games off of Windows to play this game. But I mean, to use this thing. But honestly, it's I don't know. That's the reason why I'm getting it. Like, I'm not condoning y'all pirate stuff, because that's not what I'm saying. But if you emulate games that you have on older consoles, I don't think there's an issue with that. I'll never say that there's an issue with emulating games, because preservation is important. But I was able to cop one of these, at least the reservation. I was able to get the reservation on one, on the base model. Apparently this thing will have expandable storage in the form of both SD cards and also NVMe 2, I believe, SSD upgradable storage. Don't quote me on that. I still gotta double check that. But yes, Gabe Newell, which is the the founder of Valve, did confirm that you'll be able to open up this thing and basically install your own SSD storage. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that more than anything. I got the base model because I'm broke. I'm gonna say straight up, man. I've been spending too much money, so I'm broke. So that's the reason why I got the base model, which apparently it comes with less memory, and it also I believe the storage is a little bit slower. It actually uses a similar architecture for storage than the Switch does currently. And then there's also two more expensive tiers for the Steam Deck that obviously comes with SSD storage, which is going to run a lot faster than what the base model is. So yeah, I mean, I'm super excited, man, for this. And honestly, my main source of joy for this thing is is that finally Nintendo Switch has some competition. Like, obviously, I don't think this is gonna be a direct competitor to the Switch, because it's not. Like, straight off the bat, like, the Switch is a dedicated Nintendo console, and Nintendo's biggest appeal is its software. Now this thing, if anything, it will I think it's going to overlap more with Nintendo Switch owners already. I don't think it's going to take away Nintendo Switch players from the Nintendo ecosystem, because Nintendo, of course, it's its own thing. But I welcome this, because like, people are going to start seeing that, better processing power, like a more powerful machine, upgraded graphics, something that runs way more stable and higher than, let's say, 20 FPS in like Age of Calamity's scenario. Like, people are gonna start seeing, wow, like, mobile gaming has come a long way. Why can't we, as Switch owners, have this as well? IGN did have a hands-on video on it, which I'll link down in the description below. It goes further into detail of what this thing actually has inside of it, how it runs, how it feels. So I will say my biggest issue with this thing is the design. I think this thing looks horrible. I think this is one of the worst looking consoles I've ever seen as far as like mobile gaming. Like, it looks terrible, man. The touch pads, or the track pads as they call them here, the precision track pads. Why is Steam so obsessed with like including track pads on a mobile device? Like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, I can see why they did it. I think they're kind of expecting people to use this thing for like as a dedicated emulator machine. So I can see why they did that, but at the same time, like, it just looks so ugly, bro. It takes up so much space in the real estate that already exists for the button controls and for the joysticks. Like, it's so ugly, man. It's such an ugly device. And also, like, the button layout, I mean, I don't have it obviously in my hand, so I can't really give my opinion on it. I will say it just looks weird. That's the only thing, and I hope it's not too hard to like get used to. I mean, I've played with Joy-Cons for ages now, and like, I used to think the Joy-Cons were such a badly designed controller, and I haven't had any issues. Like, I think it's the controller that I use the most to play video games, because it's just there. It's just, I just play half of the time handheld, so it's just there. But Yeah, I'm really excited for this thing, especially with the ability to be able to connect it to a monitor. As you're seeing, if you're watching the video version on YouTube, you can see that you can hook up the Steam Deck to a monitor and basically use it as your dedicated Steam playing machine. It's basically a small PC. So I'm really excited for this. I hope it brings the competition that the Switch severely needs, because I say this as a Switch fan, I say this as a Nintendo fan. Nintendo is getting too comfortable for its own good. Like with the Switch OLED being announced and it being such a disappointment, which we'll go into the next news story, which actually talks about Nintendo clearing up some things regarding the Switch OLED and its pricing. I just hope that this is some healthy competition for the Nintendo Switch. At the same time, I can't expect anything to come from this from Nintendo, because they couldn't care less. Like Nintendo it's like they're an IP monster. They're an IP monster, and that's their biggest pull. And it doesn't matter if they release the Switch OLED, which doesn't have any meaningful upgrades. It'll still sell out, and I don't know how to feel about that. I just don't know how to feel about that. But I'm excited for this thing. It's also coming out with a dock. I'm still not sure what the pricing is going to be on the dock, but I am looking forward to that, because as much as like handheld, I don't know. I wouldn't mind being able to dock this thing here and there and play it on the TV or on a monitor. It'll be very I don't know, interesting to be able to play for this. But I did get a base model. I will be using this, of course, for I'm going to be doing a video on it. I'm going to try and compare it with the Switch. Of course, there's not a lot that you can compare it to, except if you're going to be emulating games on the Steam Deck, which I'll definitely look into and see if there's any way to like get that into the Steam Deck. I'm not trying to break my system, because I know myself, I'm gonna end up selling this thing. I don't have enough Steam games for, like, to me, excuse or justify this type of device. I already play on the go with Nintendo Switch, but you never know. You never know. I guess I gotta start investing in Steam games. The other tiers, I will talk about this a little bit. Let's go into the software side of things. Here on SteamDeck.com, which is the official website for the device, they have more information regarding the device. Let's go into hardware real quick. They say that they partner with AMD, which, shout out to AMD. My computer is an AMD machine, and I've had no issues. They really have been doing their job regarding PC gaming as much. They said that they partner with AMD to create Steam Deck's custom APU, which is a integrated CPU with a video card optimized for handheld gaming. It is a Zen 2 RDNA 2 powerhouse, delivering more than enough performance to run the latest AAA games in a very efficient power envelope. We already talked about the track pads. It's going to come with a 7-inch touchscreen, which is the same size as the OLED model that's going to come out in October from Switch. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the screen, even though it's an LCD screen. It's not an OLED. I'm sure if Valve implements the same tactic regarding the screen, and they release down the line an OLED screen, I would be so upset. I would be so upset, because damn, now Nintendo's kind of messing it up. Now Nintendo's gonna be like the EA of hardware, of mobile gaming. Trackpads, of course, play PC games that were never designed to be handheld. Gyro, it comes with gyro controls with an IMU and capacitive touch thumbstick. I can't talk, bro. Thumbsticks on board. Deck helps you aim better. By physically positioning the device, you can achieve more precision than using a thumbstick or a trackpad alone. That is something very cool. I am a big proponent of gyro controls. They are really good when it comes to FPS stuff. It comes with fast storage, as I already said. Get the built-in storage you need. The 64 gigabytes eMMC, the 256 gigabytes NVMe SSD, which is faster, of course, or the 512 gigabytes SSD, which is the fastest. I got the 64 gigabytes one. I will be installing a micro SD card onto it. Well, not installing, but buying a dedicated SD card to it with fast read speeds. But at the same time, it was confirmed that there is an SSD slot on the base model. So you are basically able to install your own SSD, your own NVMe SSD onto the base model, which I think is great. And I can understand why they didn't like promote that or give you that tidbit on the actual model specifications for that base model. They're trying to get people to buy the other two more expensive tiers. It comes with hi-fi audio, 40 watt battery, which, Jesus Christ, that's a big battery, damn. Fast suspend and resume, which is a feature that they implement with SteamOS, kind of like the Switch already does. I believe the Switch does something similar. I don't know, I may be wrong on that, don't quote me on that. Wi-Fi, of course, and expandable I/O. The single USB-C jack is multi-purpose, used for charging, peripherals, or even throwing the game onto a big screen at the same time. Any USB-C hub can be used to expand your options or get our official dock when it is released. The micro SD card, of course, you can install one much like you can do on the Switch. It can be plugged into your TV. There's a dock that's coming. Let's look at the the tech specs. We already went into the processor, the RAM. It comes with 16 gigabytes of onboard RAM, which is 4 times as much as the Switch. I think the Switch has has only 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is incredible, man. That is incredible. That in itself is already a worthy investment, in my opinion. For only $50 more in comparison to the OLED model, this is a huge upgrade. And I don't think Valve is making any money on the hardware, as at least for the base model. Like, if you put your mind to it, like, this is such an expensive piece of hardware that they have to be producing these things at cost or at a loss. And I think this is Valve's kind of strategy going forward. They're just trying to get people onto the ecosystem of Steam. Like, they're just trying to get people into PC gaming. They're trying to be the pioneers in this space. Even though they're not necessarily the pioneers, they are the pioneers in like affordable PC gaming and mobile gaming. Because again, like, not everyone can play PC games. Not everyone can afford a top of the line PC game. And like, I think this is going to be a good entryway for people who want to get into PC gaming but don't necessarily have $1,000 to drop, or even if $800 to drop. This is only $400 for the base model. Like, that is very cheap. That is a very cheap entry price, and I mean entry point for PC gaming, in my opinion. The screen is only an 800p screen, which again doesn't really matter when you're playing with a screen that small. 800p is more than enough, much like in the Switch currently. 720p is more than enough. I don't think 1080p screens are a good investment. They suck power. They're not very efficient, energy efficient. And like, honestly, like, you can't really tell the difference with a screen that small. I mean, you can tell a little bit of a difference, but it really doesn't matter. This one does come with Bluetooth, which, shout out to Steam finally, putting something into that a mobile device so desperately needs, which, goddamn, I can't wait for the Switch to have a Bluetooth support, man, because Jesus Christ, I'm so done with wires, man. What else is here noteworthy? I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, the software, of course, its own operating system is a SteamOS 3.0, which is its own kind of like dedicated OS. But I think it is confirmed that you'll be able to install Windows on this machine, which I'm definitely doing. I am definitely doing. Of course, you got all the features from Steam, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna go too much into it because it's just a Steam machine. Like, I don't think anything else. That's it, man. I don't think I can talk about anything else. Of course, reservations did open, if I'm not mistaken, 2 days ago. No, it was Friday. They opened on Friday, which was the 16th. And they went fast. They went pretty fast. I was able to get the base model. I still waiting to see if it'll actually be delivered on the first quarter of 2022. Currently, the Steam tiers, the different devices are up for availability for quarter 2 of 2022. With the 64 gigabytes, which is the base model, which is 400, you get the eMMC, of course, the eMMC storage, and you get the carrying case, which is amazing. That's already in itself, that's already way better value than the Switch. You got the 256 gigabytes model, which comes with NVMe SSD at 529. It comes with a carrying case and an exclusive Steam community profile bundle, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I'm guessing it's either some kind of perk. I think they're points or games. I don't know, to be honest. I'm just talking out my ass. And then the most expensive tier, which is 512 gigabytes, which is at a whopping $649. Like, Jesus Christ, that is expensive, man. For a mobile gaming device, like, that's more expensive than the base, like the disc version of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Like, Jesus, I understand it's mobile, but come on, man. That is pretty expensive. It comes with premium anti-glare etched glass. Why would you not include that in all the devices? I don't know. Comes with an exclusive carrying case. Exclusive. It makes it way different than the other two carrying cases. An exclusive Steam community profile button. An exclusive virtual keyboard theme. I guess you pay a lot more if you want to get a keyboard theme. If that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, the Steam Deck, I already talked enough about it. Let's hope that, it's actual healthy competition for the Switch. Now, for our second news item of the week, Nintendo put out what is a very interesting response regarding the talk around the Switch OLED recently. I don't know how to take this. To me, it felt a little bit weird the way they made the statement. It felt a little. Let me kind of paint the picture, okay? Last week when the OLED was 2 weeks ago that the OLED was announced, a lot of people started obviously complaining about the Switch's price, the OLED version's price, and of course with it's pretty deserved. Like, it's $50 more from the base model, and with not a lot of performance upgrades and not a lot of actual, like, I don't know, reasonable upgrades to it. People were saying, like, why am I going to pay $50 more for basically just a better screen? Like, a better screen upgrade that small, like, it doesn't cost $50 more for them to produce it. And of course, Nintendo's a company. They're gonna put they're gonna uptick the price because they're trying to make a profit. Like, duh, it's a company. But people started kind of theorizing that the $50 price hike was Nintendo's kind of strategy to increase the price for the Switch. To kind of, like, of course the Switch has stayed at $300, and it's a pretty, I mean, even in itself, it's a little bit overpriced for a mobile gaming device. If you compare it, for example, to the PlayStation digital version, which is $400, like, are you really, for $100 more, you could be playing 4K? Like, is mobile gaming really worth that, almost $400 worth of, is that price tag of $300, justifiable for something that you can take mobilely? Me, in my opinion, yeah, but I mean, there's people that obviously don't look at it that way. They're just graphics people. That's all they see. But a lot of reports started coming out that this is speculating that this is Nintendo's way of trying to increase the price of the Switch without people, like, going too crazy about it. Specifically Bloomberg, which, by the way, Bloomberg you got to start taking with a grain of salt. Bloomberg is I think they lost a lot of credibility following the Switch Pro rumors, and the OLED version finally coming out. Like, that put a huge dent in their credibility. I think a lot of people are now taking what Bloomberg says with a grain of salt, and especially after this report specifically that came out on July 14th by Takashi Mochizuki, which is the same reporter that did the Switch Pro reports. Here, Bloomberg states, Nintendo Switch's big price hike takes gamers into new territory. Price bump expected to improve the company's profit margins. The original 4-year-old Switch has shown no signs of slowing. Nintendo company's decision to increase the price of its Switch console with an updated model set for October will test new waters for console makers, who have traditionally sought to juice sales by slashing prices instead of raising them. The coronavirus outbreak reconfigured expectations across the gaming industry, with companies like Nintendo, Sony Group Corporation, and Microsoft Corporation all struggling to satisfy runaway demand from players seeking entertainment and escape. The two Japanese giants reported record profits, downloads, and subscriber numbers over the past year. Now Nintendo is betting this momentum can be sustained with a new $350 model, a jump from the standards model original $300 price tag, and a repudiation of traditional console economics. In an industry where consoles typically get midlife price cuts, the Switch is moving into a higher tier, largely on the strength of a larger and better OLED display and some added storage. The upgrades are estimated to cost around $10 more per unit, to produce. It's only costing Nintendo $10 more to produce per unit, meaning Nintendo is improving profit margins and relying on its rich library of games to keep sales brisk. Prices for existing consoles have so far only gone up with the launch of more powerful editions, and Nintendo's updated model makes no such performance improvements. The new Switch's 7-inch, this is very interesting. Here, the report breaks down the actual cost of the parts that they're adding to the Switch OLED. The new Switch's 7-inch OLED display for Samsung Display costs an additional $3 to $5 per unit, according to Yoshio Tamura, co-founder of industry research firm DSCC. Increasing the internal storage to 64 gigabytes is a further $3.50, according to Omdia's Akira Minamikawa. The other added components, such as the new console stand and LAN port, are thought to add a few dollars more. Nintendo has been selling the Switch at a profit since its launch, and historically, not Nintendo, just like all console makers like Sony, Microsoft, they sell these consoles at a loss, basically, or at cost usually. They don't make a lot of money from selling consoles. What makes them the money is always going to be games. It's always going to be software. So they kind of sell these consoles at a cost or at a loss as an investment to get people in their ecosystem. Like the Switch is probably one of the first few, not one of the first, but it's one of the few current consoles that actually makes a profit for a Nintendo every time somebody buys a Switch. And it's a very rare sight for something like this to happen. The conventional model for consoles is to start selling them, like I said, at a loss in order to secure wide adoption, to recoup the investment through software sales and improvements in manufacturing efficiency over time. Investors have so far taken a negative view of the new hardware and its pricing, with company shares down roughly 5% since the announcement last week. Analyst reactions have been polarized. Nintendo failed to provide enough added value to justify a $50 bump in the new hardware, Morningstar's head of equity research Kazunori Ito said. The new hardware is barely half-baked and would do no help at all in sustaining the platform's momentum. The Switch had its peak last year and is only going to slow down from here. Now, basically this report, it's saying that Nintendo is not trying to trick people into paying more for what is essentially the same console, not so much saying that, but they're just basically trying to increase the price and try and make a profit a little bit more here and there. And they're using the OLED revision as an excuse to, do the price hike. And investors were a little worried. I'm just summarizing what I already said, but they were a little worried about the reception of the OLED announcement because, as I said, like gamers, they're not necessarily ignorant to these things, like to tech stuff. Like it's such an expensive hobby to get into that gamers look more into these things. That they understand the technology behind the games. They try to understand the hardware, and like they try and justify buying consoles. Like it's not an easy purchase, so to speak. And so investors kind of saw that reception from the OLED model, and they started getting a little freaked out about, the prospects of the Switch going forward, and especially with a price hike of $50. Like that's a pretty sizable price hike given the upgrades that Nintendo's trying to sell. But after reports like this one that I just read to you came out, Nintendo kind of put on their gloves and they say, yo, hold on, like we gotta calm the waters. We gotta tell people to chill out right now. So they tweeted out this weird ass response, and I don't understand why. Like, I mean, I understand why, but I don't understand why they decided to do it this way. It came out a little bit weird in my opinion. This was tweeted out from the Nintendo Co. Ltd. Twitter account, which is basically a Twitter account, an official Twitter account for Nintendo that is basically is aimed at investors. As we know, Nintendo is a publicly traded company, so a lot of people have money invested in Nintendo. They tweeted out a news report on July 15, 2021, Japan Standard Time, claimed that the profit margin of the Nintendo Switch OLED model would increase compared to the Nintendo Switch. To ensure correct understanding among our investors and customers, we want to make clear that the claim is incorrect. We also want to clarify that we just announced that Nintendo Switch OLED model will launch in October 2021 and have no plans for launching any other model at this time. Now, I can understand why Nintendo decided to kind of defend themselves, because obviously it paints them, like this Bloomberg report painting them in a very shady way, and of course as a company you never want to come off that way. It kind of messes up with your reputation, even though Nintendo reputation is already kind of down in the dumps a little bit. And I say that as a Nintendo fan before y'all start coming and attack me. But it was a little bit weird way of defending themselves. Like it came off a little Jesus Christ. Sorry about that. It came out a little defensive in my opinion, and I feel Nintendo released this statement to kind of help investors calm themselves, like, because as we said, like they started seeing losses in their stock after the Switch OLED announcement. I feel Nintendo did this to kind of calm the investors who are very jumpy about these announcements, who are like, whoa, relax. Like people are not too happy about what you just announced. Like, can you please relax and like take it a step back or bring down the price hike? So Nintendo's kind of just trying to clear their name. It was a little bit weird. I don't know where this energy is coming from. Of course, I want to be as transparent as possible, but of course, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to justify these upgrades. Like besides the reasoning as far as the price hike, like it just, in my opinion, the upgrades to the Switch, the OLED version, are just not. They don't justify the price hike, in my opinion. To go further more into this, they explain it a little bit better than I did, because I'm not very good at this. Nintendo Live did report on this tweet. They reporting here, Nintendo denies it'll make increased profits with Switch OLED. No plans for other models at this time. Nintendo has issued a statement regarding that it's set to make an increased profit with Switch OLED when compared to the standard model, describing them as incorrect. The post addressed to investors and customers in social media this morning references a Bloomberg report which claimed that the Switch OLED's manufacturing cost comes in at around $10 more per unit, meaning Nintendo is improving profit margins. As you can see, Nintendo also took time to state that it has no plans for launching any other model at this time, presumably addressing thoughts that a further upgraded model which would make this new OLED variant less enticing could also be on the way in the near future. Last week, an industry analyst warned that Nintendo's increased pricing with the OLED could set a precedent for charging more across the industry. Of course, if Nintendo really isn't benefiting from increased profit margins, the higher price would at least seem more reasonable to those concerned. Yeah, it's a little weird. It's a weird situation. I don't know how to take it. I just find it funny how they got on the defensive pretty aggressively. Like, I don't blame them. They want to keep people's hopes, and expectations lowered, and they want their investors to not panic buy. I mean, panic sell. And they kind of want to calm their nerves. Of course, these are investors that are usually not very. I want to say, like, they're emotional investors. They're people who see, they're reactionaries, and I think that Nintendo started getting a little bit nervous of about the reception of the OLED model, especially with the Steam Deck being announced. I feel they were like, oh shit, like, we got to take a step back. And deal with this head on. And of course, we're starting to see some price cuts from the pre-orders on the Switch OLED model. There were some reports here and there that Walmart actually started doing price matching, and taking off those $50 from the pre-orders for the Switch OLED model. So, is this Nintendo's strategy going forward, like just trying to replace the base model with the OLED model? I think it will make sense. I think it'll save on resources. It'll save on time. Like, why would you want to be selling both consoles at the same time? Like, it's a waste of resources, in my opinion. Like, I feel that Nintendo just getting rid of all the debt materials that they got for the base model Switch currently. So they're kind of, I think by the holiday season, they're gonna lower the price of the OLED model to $300, if not by next year. Because yeah, I think that they I don't know if they expected this kind of reception for the OLED model, this very negative. Well, very critical. I don't want to say completely negative, but very critical reception of the OLED model, and they were like, "Yo, maybe we did a mistake here." So we'll see what happens going forward. I am excited to see people's reactions to the OLED model, see what is the future for the for Nintendo's hardware, because we're slowly creeping up to the sixth year of the Nintendo Switch, and like, by that time, the sixth year is usually when you start seeing some rumors. Well, we're already seeing some rumors on the Nintendo Switch Pro. Like, Jesus Christ, it's been like 2 years nonstop. But now this is when we start seeing companies, at least in their life cycle, to start announcing and teasing their next generation of consoles. But at the same time, I just think Nintendo is approaching they're approaching their business strategy much in the same way that Apple does. With the iPhone, which is releasing an updated model here every year, but in Nintendo situation, it'll probably be like every 3 or 4 years they'll release an upgraded model with just a few specs upgraded here and there. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with Steam Deck more than anything. I'm excited for that. I have to start investing in Steam games. I don't have much of Steam games on it. I don't play much Steam games, to be honest, but it's gonna have to I have to justify the damn Steam Deck. If not, I'm gonna sell that thing, or I'll do a giveaway. I don't know. We'll see, man. But folks, I've been True Fernie. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, this week's episode of the Search and Report podcast. Of course, you can listen to this podcast on the go on Spotify. Just search for Search and Report. Our logo is a little Game Boy, and I can assure you that we're the only gaming podcast called Search and Report. Man, I have to double check that, because I swear to God, man, if there's a gaming podcast out there that's already called Search and Report, I would be very upset. Alternatively, you can watch the video version over here on my YouTube channel, which if you're already watching on my YouTube channel, what's up? But just search for True Fernie. I do have a playlist for all the Search and Report podcasts. As well, please make sure to follow me on Twitter, where I tweet my day away. That's where I spend most of my waking hours, and that's where I'm always reporting on news as well. I'm retweeting and like giving my opinions on certain stuff. Just a lot of discussions happening on Twitter more than anything. That's where I spend most of my time. That's where you can reach me. Also, please make sure to follow me on Twitch, where I try and stream pretty regularly. Currently, I'm playing Skyward Sword HD over on my Twitch channel. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. I'm going to do a complete full gameplay because I am on like a Zelda high right now. I just beat Ocarina of Time. Why did I say Ocarina? I just beat Ocarina of Time last week. I'm going to beat Skyward Sword, and then we'll see what other 3D Zelda game I tackle. Probably it's going to be Majora's Mask on 3DS. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, please make sure to join our Discord, where we have we talk anything and everything gaming, anything and everything anime, TV, movies, anything that you as my viewer might enjoy. And yeah, without further ado, y'all, if you're a content creator, if you do this kind of stuff, if you're a gaming content creator, reach out to me. I would love to have you on my channel. I would love to have you on the podcast more than anything. I like talking with other content creators, streamers, anything that, anybody who's actually serious about content creation. Let's collaborate. I'm setting a personal goal. I want to collaborate more. I'm going to collaborate more with people out there. And if you're serious about this, please reach out to me on Twitter. Just search True Fernie. All links are down in my description below. But folks, please take care of each other, but most importantly, take care of yourself. Peace, and shout out the Switch OLED and the Steam Deck. Just shout out to gaming, man. Gaming is in such a good place right now. I just love it. I could not be happier. I could not be happier to be living in this current period of time. I'm just so happy that I exist at the same time as video games exist. All right. Peace.